Good evening, everybody. No, please don't do it like that. It's so that I can be with you. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking with you. And then I can speak, because I can be myself then. So good evening, everybody. All right, here we go now. So, communities and connection. What a wonderful theme for today. And it's a pleasure to be here speaking with so many other gifts that have been shared with you already this evening that I've thoroughly appreciated, and I thank everybody's contribution. It really has touched my soul. I was feeling so not very energized, although I'm known for energy, but I'm not feeling very energized at the moment. And really just want to run away and go home and sleep. But actually, after that, it's like, no, you know what? It's okay. And why do I believe in the power of communities and connection? Because for me, it's the only way we can live in a humane world. Because really, that's what it's really about for me. And how do I, in the works that I do, really try and cultivate that commitment to communities and connection, to the people, with the people, for the people, about the people, and that whatever we're doing from wherever we're located is actually supporting the people. My focus is really around, I think I can change the slides. You're going to help me here, right? If I'm not quite getting things in sequence. My focus really is about supporting communities to thrive. In my portfolio as a local councillor, I'm the cabinet member for Healthier Communities. So it's all about how do we support our communities to connect and thrive. And many of some of the ideas and thoughts that were shared in your presentation are things that we are proactively putting into place across all those different kind of like levels. But why am I here, and why am I so driven around elevating actually the voices of communities? It's not just one community, there are many communities. You know, elevating the voices of communities, and in particular, people that are impacted by, that have a racialized experience, with my NHS hat on as the Mental Health Equalities Advisor. Why is that so important to me and actually so urgent? It's actually my lived experience. I've been a carer of 3 siblings with severe mental illness since I was, late teenager. And I grew up with my mother having mental health challenges. She was in and out of hospital, having electrical conversive, can't even say what the name is, it's so irritating, but ECT. She was in and out of hospital, and we were in and out of care. And more recently, my auntie, so 3 siblings with severe mental illness, but 2 of them are dead, right? One died at the age of 41, my baby brother, Carlton, and my other brother died at the age of 54, 6 days after George Floyd died. So you can imagine the impact of that on not just my family, but our communities and friends in relation to that loss. But they'd been in mental health services, and the battle for me and my mum is trying to advocate to get the best possible care for them. But knowing throughout all of that journey, we were never really heard, we were never really received, that my brothers, my siblings, were reduced to a non-human in terms of their treatment and really the only treatment for you is around medication. And actually what kept and supported my brothers as they were going on their journey was actually the communities and connections that they had that helped them to feel like they were human beings that were worthy of some kind of contribution in the world. And so that's why this is really important to me, because I look at it and I say, my goodness, if that's what my family's gone through, I've lost 2 siblings, I've got 1 sister alive, and she has her ongoing mental health challenges. And every day I'm really worried about, is she going to die as well? You know, like that kind of happens to you, because my auntie last year died at the beginning of the year, went into hospital, detained under the Mental Health Act, and never left that hospital because a tube that was meant to feed her because she stopped eating went into her lung and she's dead. So this is the reality of the racialized experience, because for me, that's not shocking to my family. That's not shocking to people who are experiencing a differential experience because of their ethnicity, because of their race, because of their culture. That's like, we expect that because that's how this society operates. That's how our institutions operate, right? But what we're here to do is to say that we can do things differently, right? We can actually be human, and we can actually treat everybody else as human. We just need to learn how to do that better. And so that was one of the reasons, my experience was the reason I said, but hold on a minute, why doesn't nobody want to listen to communities? Why doesn't nobody want to listen to carers? Why don't people want to listen to service users? Why don't people want to listen to people when they are in these institutions giving care, in order to improve the services so that you better respond to those experiences, right? So hence my idea about, like, maybe we could have an equivalent like the Workforce Race Equality Standard. Or maybe we could have, that's it, the Patient and Carer Race Equality Standard. So I started off with that recommendation, but the system don't like that. Oh, we can't do that, we can't do that. It's going to cost too much money. So along the way, getting rejection, essentially. But I can't allow myself to be rejected in that sense, because there's an urgent need here in relation to my concern, which is not just about my family, it's about all the families that might be impacting in this way, and also communities, because I care actually about the liberty of all my fellow citizens. And actually I grew up with a Reverend Father, so that's interesting that this is a Henry Hawkins. I grew up in a Christian home. And so yeah, that's a bit about me in that regard. That means that that I've pursued this journey. So why? We talk about racism as a systemic public health issue. We know that there are poor access to mental health service provision, poor access, poor experience, poor outcomes, and that the society is an unequal society right across all the social determinants. We know this. So when we talk about communities and connection, we're actually talking about it within this context for racialized communities, which once again means that we're attending to differential experiences. There's rising Islamophobia and xenophobia, and actually the funding cuts, especially since austerity policies from 2010 in particular, have absolutely devastated many communities who have further non-access to opportunities for their lives to flourish and thrive, and the support to do that. But there is some progress. We've just got the mental health bill, and those reforms, I was involved in that, and I was able to bring that idea to the Mental Health Act review and got it through as a recommendation, actually in advance of the development of the white paper, because 2 out of 6 of the key elements of the review in terms of the terms of reference was one, the rising levels of detention under the Mental Health Act, which we know is a racialised level. The numbers are just ridiculous. And then the overrepresentation of people from racialised groups in inpatient settings. So it's like that catalyst enabled me to really work with the Prime Minister at that time and the Secretary of State at that time in order to really lobby for these recommendations to move forward. So the patient and carer race equality framework, I've spoken a bit about that evolution from an idea in my mind to now it's part of the mental health bill. The formal guidance for the patient and carer race equality framework was officially launched in 2023 October. It's the first anti-racism framework for the NHS. It means it's mandatory wherever the public purse is spent on mental health service provision. And yeah, so that's all there. People will get the slides or they'll see the slides, so I'm not going to read line by line. Basically, systemizing and using all available levers to embed it so that we can move to a place where this is just how we do our business. But really central to all of this is that it's a participatory approach. What do we mean by a participatory approach? This is not something that is top down, that officers and workforce and chief execs and directors and heads of departments and team leaders, and it's not about their implementation alone. It's about how do you work in partnership with communities, with the people that are living in those communities that are experiencing these daily realities and these challenges. So how do you get them connected into helping to identify what some of the challenges are that lead to differential experiences of access, experience and outcomes across all mental health service areas, be that perinatal mental health services, inpatient services, community mental health services, talking therapies, children and young people's mental health services. How do you create a context, a setting where communities, service users, patients, carers, the workforce and the leadership and the VCSE sector work together in a connected way to actually help to improve access, experience and outcomes for racialised groups? And equally, people keep saying to me, oh, can't we do it for other protected characters? Of course we can, right? And we can do it for other cohorts. You know, people ask me, can't we do it in education and the criminal justice system? Of course we can. But you know what? We're going to really get it right here first, right? Because it is actually really possible to do this work. And for you to be hearing this event, there's an understanding, or at least I'm hoping for that you yourselves are committed to communities and connection. So, like I said, we've systemized it, and you can see where we've systemized it. The CQC will be inspecting it in terms of the implementation of it per mental health provider, be that located in the statutory, independent or VCSE sector. So everybody actually, in terms of our populations, our communities, can see what it is that yous are doing as services in helping to change the trajectory of what all Mental Health Act Commission reports, all CQC reports have said decade after decade, there is an overrepresentation. They copy and paste it literally year by year by year around the same description of the racialized experience of mental health services. And so we've been in the describing phase, but nobody's engaged with the how do we transform that narrative to something where actually we can all say, you know what, you go and use mental health services because they're great. They're not going to oppress you. They're not going to further exacerbate your vulnerabilities, because this is mental health services are so important when people are at their most vulnerable. And actually, we should be making sure that people feel safe enough and trusting enough and confident enough in these services in order to access them earlier. And that's why it's really great that in the categories that the CQC will be inspected is well-led and responsive. Now, how can you get responsive if you're not in dialogue with the communities that you're serving? You can't get to responsive services. How would you get there? So that whole communication and that connection and having the voices of those communities in that participatory approach around it is really essential. Let me show you a little bit what it looks like. So it's in 3 parts, yeah? Part 1 is about leadership and governance and making sure that we've got a range of sort of data sources like both qualitative and quantitative. It's basically collecting, putting together collectively that which we collect already across the mental health, health and care sector. So we're thinking about, population health, the Mental Health Act and its implementation, right? And you're cutting that data by ethnicity, and by the protected characteristics, age, gender, sexuality, ethnicity. And you're looking at these different sources of data, right? And then you're using that collective intelligence along with the patient and carer feedback in part 3, which is made up of patient-related outcome measures, plus we're developing a real-time digital feedback tool to help to give feedback from citizens about whether or not they're experiencing discrimination, racism or oppression. We're working on that. And so you've got part 1 and part 3, like that collective intelligence that then informs more intelligent conversations in part 2. And part 2 is where you're looking at each of the different service areas and you're applying, because you're identifying with your patient service users, communities, workforce and leadership, you're having those conversations with them equipped by that collective intelligence so that you can come to collective insights. And actually that helps you to create your action plan, which you jointly own and actually may jointly deliver on some level. So partnership working is really critical here. Co-production, co-learning, staff knowledge, cultural awareness. These are the national organisational competencies that you now, like an engine room, you're activating that and you've got all those people from your communities actually participating in that. I was really, I was so happy yesterday. I'm not going to go into the rest of that. I'm actually going to just stay here and I'm going to leave us here on this because I think I'm conscious of time and I don't really want to get too technical. What I want to sort of celebrate is how empowering such a framework is, because it actually helps to redress some of the power imbalance, right? It helps to redress some of the power imbalance. And actually, somebody, and I'll read something to you that somebody sent to me. So it's mandatory. It's in NHS standard contracts since April last year. Or is it this year, 2024, right? Since April this year. But the CQC are not going to inspect really in terms of those 2 categories that I said from this year. They're just helping providers to understand that this is present. And from next year, they'll be incorporating it into their inspection. But I wanted to read to you, and I will close with this, some feedback that I received as this is rolling out across the country. And let me find it if I can find it. Oh dear, which way does it go? Oh, I hate when this happens. Let's find it. It's my birthday tomorrow. So I'm happy to be here. But I'm also like, oh, it's my birthday tomorrow. Yeah, happy birthday. So as we're rolling this out, and my role really is about supporting people who are interested in this to actually help them on that implementation journey. And I was in with the ministers yesterday, the mental health bill is going through. And so I was with the ministers yesterday. We had a roundtable discussion and looking at, and they recognise the racialised experience. They need to help to strengthen that further. And we had that conversation yesterday. But I was just thinking to myself, you know what? All I've been doing is going not all I've been doing. I do that national work simply so that I can do the work on the ground and that I've got the levers available to us, to communities, to get involved in things that are relevant to their lives. Does that make sense? You know, it's purposeful in that regard. You know, I locate myself very strategically, it seems, nationally, regionally, and locally, just so that I can live in a community where I feel like I'm not every day walking down my streets and feeling so sad that you're seeing the level of mental health challenges on the streets, right? Or when you're on the bus and looking at it. It's absolutely shocking. I can't live like that. I've got to do something about it, right? So somebody reached out that is equally doing those kind of things where they're located in another part of the country. As, you know, the early adopters are really getting to grips with this and moving this forward, the early adopter sites. South London and Moseley is an early adopter site. And this woman reached out and said, hi, I just wanted to reach out to say what an amazing impact PCREF, that's the acronym for it, is having. We are in the middle of the participatory sessions to develop our improvement plan. I have been terrified by leading these sessions. Who am I to do this? How will I be perceived by communities? What difference can I really hope to make? Etc. I was in Warsaw for 3 hours yesterday, and it has been such an emotional 24 hours. Yes, we got some tangible actions for our plan, but we got so much more than that. The compassion, care, honesty, connection, and vulnerability that was there blew me away. PCREF is so much more than a framework. It is a movement bringing people together to see each other and talk in a way we have never done before and trust each other enough to see the possibility for real change. I still feel daunted a lot of the time, but I keep your videos close, watch them often, and I'm lifted by everything you bring to this work. Thank you.
Jacqui, that are just inspirational about the way that strategy can make such a difference on the ground. Sometimes we read strategy documents and they sit on shelves and nothing changes. And I think what you're describing is this incredible step change towards really focusing on anti-racist practice in our state institutions, and for organizations like Together as a mental health provider with NHS contracts. So thank you. So we've got time for a couple of questions for Jacqui, talking about community and how these things can really make a difference on the ground.
Jacqui, I think you're a councillor at Lambeth, and in the middle of, Lambeth and Suffolk, we've got the South London and Maudsley Hospital. Do you think that things have improved greatly with all the work as far as racialised minorities are concerned in the health service that's provided there?
They're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, in all seriousness, they are working on it. And I can say that because I co-chair their anti-racism steering group, and I also co-chair their PCREF partnership group. So the structures, the spaces have been cultivated for this kind of work to take place. And so yesterday, for example, I had a meeting with community, I never had that meeting. The meeting took place and it was community members coming together to actually look at what are the issues from their perspectives around children and young people services and adults of working age sort of like services. So I think that with that momentum, and there is real momentum around it, from the bottom up, actually, whilst the structures are there in place, I think the middle bit, in a sense, is quite difficult, because what you have is the mindsets that are in racism denial. They are resistant to actually facing the issue. The issue is something else. It's about bed numbers or everything else, except actually there's a racialized experience that's taking place here. And actually it's about systems of oppression. So it's the multiple oppressions actually that some people received. And if you don't have that level of awareness within your workforce, then actually what your workforce is doing is replicating that which is what the dominant society is operating like, because this is what our society is like. When you look at the UK race riots just recently, we know that's exposed the reality of what it is that we're operating with. So I would say that they are definitely committed in going in the right direction. They really, really are, and it's a joy actually working with that level of appetite, yeah? But it's a way to go, and this isn't an overnight win. It isn't, because we're talking about centuries of racism, of, you know, dehumanizing, in particularly the black body as a non-human in that period of enslavement. People might say that slavery hasn't really gone away. It's just got another guise right now. You could have that argument. But yes, I think they're going in the right direction, definitely.
Can I just tell a little story?
I'm giving you a blind.
Because I live near the Maudsley Hospital.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of people who are patients at the Maudsley in the park where I live. And the other morning I was walking through the park, and there was an elderly gentleman who was, I think he was Indian in origin, and he didn't have any shoes on, he didn't have any trousers on. And there was somebody sitting with him, a woman was sitting with him, and I thought she was a nurse from the Maudsley. And I asked her, was everything okay? And she said, yes, fine, I've rung the police. And I did think, well, the Maudsley's across the road, why did you ring the police? So I just hang around, basically. And 2 police officers arrived, and they showed this man extreme compassion and kindness. I was absolutely amazed. I was so overwhelmed, really. I should have taken their numbers and their names, because I thought they needed, you know, to be thanked for the way they handled it. They were just absolutely brilliant. And it restored my faith in humanity.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We had another question at the back.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I found it really inspirational. One thing I've noticed, and I think it's a really good thing, but it's like your opinion, is we're starting to talk about anti-racism again. I remember we had this period where it was almost a dirty word. We had to talk about diversity, and I got labelled as argumentative, critical, for saying it hasn't gone away. If you're pretending to be nice to people, there's still racism, whether direct or institutional. And it's really good that diversity isn't anywhere in any of this. Do you think that was a dark period?
What, the period?
The diversity.
I don't even know what to say about that. It's just avoidance strategies. And I like to think of us as being adults, you know? Like, where are we going with all these avoidance strategies? What's that all about even? So I am known to be somebody that's very frank. Because actually it's not good for my own mental health to be sort of disguising what the reality of the issue is, because I'm wanting to attend, or for us to attend to the issue. The issue is racism. The issue is that it's harmful, and it's harming all of our society. You know, both those that are being conditioned to be, be racist, essentially, and those who are impacted by that. It's harming everybody, because we lose the opportunity as a society for us all to flourish and thrive. So I don't really know about this diversity thing. I was going to say seduced. That wasn't the word. I was trying to find a word. Oh, I'm tired, I apologize. Yeah. I never got down that one, because it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm also neurodiverse, which means that I need to stay as close to the truth or my facts as possible, because anything else I don't really understand, you know? So, yeah, I'm really glad, like you are, that we're getting it back to humanity and looking at how we can improve the human condition through actually being honest about what are the issues and the dynamics at play here that are undermining our ability to be the fully flourishing human, loving and kind and compassionate human beings that we can be. And you've already just given an example of the police like that. So no matter where you're located, you can be like that. And that's what we really need, especially in these times, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very